Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to Brooks's Bass Corner, live chat number 13 on a cold January evening. It's very cold here in the UK. Can't wait for those summer festival shows to start happening. It will be a godsend. Hope you're all safe and well out there. Hope you're all persevering with the pandemic, and wherever you are, hope things are improving. So tonight is, as I said, live chat number 13. Last week's one went pretty well, and we had a discussion about single coil equipped precision based instruments. We're going to carry on that theme this week, and we're going to be looking at Music Man Stingray basses. So I will try and have a live chat with you guys out there about the good points, the bad points, what sets them apart, what are the reasons you would want to buy one, why you would want to use one, why you might not want to use one. So once we get the housekeeping section of this live chat out of the way, I will open that part of the chat up to you guys out there. Feel free to contribute, comments, questions, anything that you would like to contribute, feel free. Doesn't have to be about Stingrays. Anything to do with bass playing, any of the videos on the channel, anything about the channel. If you've got anything you'd like to ask me about Bass Player magazine or Bass Guitar magazine that we used to have. I used to be a writer for Bass Guitar magazine, but obviously it's no longer with us. But Bass Player certainly is, and is in fine form. So if you've got any questions about the magazine, feel free to ask. So housekeeping wise, welcome to all of you out there. Welcome to all the new subscribers. I've had quite a few new subscribers in the last week since I last saw you. So thank you very much for subscribing. Thank you for all the likes, all the comments, all the notification. You know, when you guys hit the notification bell, it's all positive. All of that stuff helps me, helps the channel to grow. All the new Facebook friends, people following the social media channels, Instagram followers, Twitter followers, it's all good. So thank you very much to everyone who's new to this channel, and you are always welcome here. So feel free to, you know, if you've got any messages you want to send me or any comments about any of the videos or things you might like to see in the future, anything you don't like, anything you think isn't really working, let me know. All of that is positive feedback and helps me to make the channel hopefully what it will be over the coming months and years. Big thanks to those of you who made super chat payments last week on the live chat, and also when we do the live chats on the video premieres, when I upload a video, it's premiered, you can contribute to the channel, and all of that money will go into new equipment, hiring a studio for future videos, and generally keeping this channel running. So thank you very much to those who contributed. If you want to do that and help with the running of the channel, at the bottom of the live chat section on this video, on the right hand side of the screen, you'll see a smiley emoji icon. You'll see like a graph, which is a poll icon if I want to set up a poll. In between all of those, you'll see a $sign. That allows you to make a contribution to the channel via super chat. So feel free, if you'd like to do that, it will be more than welcome and very gratefully appreciated. Let's have a look. So if you're enjoying the video or enjoying any of the videos on the channel or the channel as a whole, please hit the subscribe button. Please hit the notification bell, which allows you to decide which alerts you get when I post up new content. And please hit the thumbs up, both for this video and any other videos you see on the channel if you're enjoying what you see. All of that feeds back into the YouTube algorithm and helps this channel to progress. So if you're doing that, I really appreciate it. Thank you. If you've got any comments about this live chat, if you're watching this after it's taken place, and obviously you can't contribute to the live chat as it's going on, feel free to leave a comment in the comments section below this video, right below this window. And also, if you've got any anything that you want to contribute on the social media channels, you'll find me on Facebook, you'll find me on Instagram, and you'll find me on Twitter. All of it is Brooks's Bass Corner. If you're trying to find me on Twitter, you'll find it's Brooks's Bass Co. and then the number 1. I couldn't get Brooks's Bass Corner for some reason. I think actually the string of characters was too long. But anyway, I'm there. You'll find me there, and feel free to follow that channel. Okay, over the past, let's think, this week and last week, there's been 3 Soundbite demo videos. So if you have sort of missed out on what's been posted up lately, Monday last week was a Fender Jazz, a modified Fender Jazz. So that Soundbite demo gives you a 6-minute demo of how that bass sounds with fingerstyle techniques, pick technique, and slapping. And that bass is owned by someone who I'm not sure if he's here at the moment, Gary. He bought that bass from Bass Direct while I was actually reviewing it and doing the filming on it. And a previous owner had modified that Jazz, so it's not a typical jazz bass. Rather than having 2 individual volumes for each pickup and a master tone, a previous owner had changed it to a master volume, a pickup pan, and then the tone control also allowed parallel and series switching via a push-pull facility on that control. So that video's up. Then we had a live chat last Wednesday, so that video you'll find under the live section of the videos. And then on Thursday last week, I had the Soundbite demo video of a Mike Lull V5, 5-string jazz bass variant from Mike Lull Custom Guitars. Outstanding instrument, not cheap, but quality costs, I usually find. And that video has been very well received. And thank you to the guys at Mike Lull for all their communications and their thumbs up. That's really well appreciated. And then yesterday was the Soundbite demo video of a brand you may not have heard of called Vincent Bass Guitars. They're coming out of Germany. I'm not sure how long they've been around for, but the bass I was looking at was called a Vincent Accurate, AKKURAT. And it was a PJ model. At the moment, they're hard to find. I think there's only 1 or 2 places in the UK that are selling these basses. And looking at it, you would think, oh, well, it's just a precision jazz variant, passive, some nice words, nice paintwork. The actual secret lies in the pickups they're using, which I will go into on the review video, but also they're using a honeycomb construction. So if you strip the gloss finish and the painted layer away, you would see that the body has a honeycomb design, which improves balance, reduces the weight, and I think gives the bass a really sweet tone. It doesn't sound like a lot of PJs I've looked at in the past, but a very interesting bass, fabulous to play, and there will be a review video of that very shortly. But if you want to get a heads up on what this brand is about and how their basses sound, head on over to the content and the videos on this channel, and you'll see that video. It went up yesterday. I'm going to do a quick shout out to the people that have joined us. I can see there's quite a few people sitting watching this video, so good evening, welcome wherever you are. Hope you're safe and well. Papa G, good evening from East London. How are you? Hope you're well. Stacy from North Carolina in the US, good evening, hope you're well. JM Bass Music, thanks for the review on the Aria SB1000 and your other videos. My pleasure, thank you. Thank you for getting involved in the live chat, contributing. If you're enjoying that video and the others, then you know it's all good. I'm doing this to kind of provide good demos and good reviews. There's lots of them on YouTube, obviously, but where I've done this for years, firstly with Bass Guitar Magazine and now with Bass Player, I just want to try and provide some of what I do when I review instruments out there for you guys. So certainly with the pandemic going on, and wherever you may be located on the planet, it's not always easy these days to get hold of certain instruments and be able to test things. But if I can give you a heads up, rather than you spending several £1,000s, dollars, euros, or whatever on an instrument, if I can give you a heads up on what that might sound like or how it might play, then I'm doing what I wanted to do. So, you know, thank you. Thank you for the kind words on the area. Richard Evans, good evening. How are we? Up north, cold, I would imagine. Hope you're well. Hope you're safe and well, and everything's going well up there. We actually have an extra visitor tonight here in my office where I'm filming this from. My dog is with us this evening. He's fast asleep, so I'm not going to interrupt him. But if you start to hear dogs snoring, it's not me, I can assure you. It'll be him. But his mum's out this evening, and if I leave him somewhere else in the house, he'll start screaming the house down. So he's in with Dad, and he's here. So little Max, I'm sure, sends all of you love and best wishes. And if he wakes up, I'll bring him up to the camera, but I won't interrupt him for the moment. So what's coming up on the channel after today? Okay, there's another Soundbite demo coming up tomorrow, which will be Soundbite number 2 of the Dingwall D-Rock Hellboy bass that I had for review a couple of months back, just before Christmas. You will probably have already seen this. Soundbite number 1 is already up there. You may well be asking, what is Soundbite number 2? Well, with the Hellboy, there are so many tonal configurations and options with all the pickup switching and the dark glass circuit and the tone control. And even though it's passive, there are so many options that the first Soundbite video I realized was becoming really long and extended, and I had to try and crop it down, otherwise it wouldn't have fitted within the Soundbite sort of format, which is, the idea is it's not a 10 to 15 minute length video like the reviews are, because obviously with that there's commentary and I'm going into detail. The idea of the sound bites is they're short, sweet, concise. You get an idea of how the thing sounds, and then if you want to learn more about that instrument, you'll check out the review video. Well, with the first sound bite of the Hellboy, it was starting to span out towards 20 minutes long, and I really had to cut it down. But in doing that, I was only able to feature, I think, the fingerstyle section. So the pick section, playing a Dingwall with a pick, you know, it's what a lot of people do. I had to take that whole chunk out of the video, and that brought it down to about 15 minutes, and then there was further editing. So soundbite number 2 is going to be all those tonal options, but how does that bass sound with a pick? I can tell you it sounds radically different to how it might sound if you were playing it fingerstyle. So that will come up tomorrow. And then next week on my list here of what's coming up, at some point, probably Monday, will be the Fender FSR, which is Fender Special Release, I think. That's what those initials stand for. That'll be the Fender FSR-P, which is a 70s reissue, or based on a 70s Fender P, but came out in 2018 in limited numbers. So there'll be a soundbite for that, and then also a Cort B5 Element 5-string. I just had one of these for review. It'll be the same bass, and I was quite blown away with the quality of these instruments. So, as I said, Dingwall Hellboy Part 2 tomorrow, Fender FSR Precision on Monday, and then the Cort B5 Element next Thursday. And then once we get out of January, then a lot of pedal reviews coming up, interviews, and hopefully, fingers crossed, everything going to plan, the new series that I've got planned, of which there are 3, I can start rolling those out, and I won't tell you what they are because it will ruin the surprise, but hopefully those will start appearing in February. Yeah, so there we go. I'm just going to quickly check because I can see messages rolling up on the live chat here. Stacey, hello Max. Yeah, he's here. He's here, fast asleep but not snoring, and be grateful for that, because once he starts, it'll sound like we've got workmen here. Yes, so I'm going to now talk about Music Man Stingrays. So for all of you guys out there, if you want to contribute to this part of the live chat, feel free to put in comments, questions, anything you want to talk about regarding Music Man Stingrays, whether you've got experience of them, you've never picked one up, whether you've got one and you love it, whether you've got one and you hate it, modifications you might have made, your favorite artists that have used them, your favorite bands who've had a bass player that's used a Stingray in the past, any albums that you think are really influential that have Stingray tone all over them. Fire it away, and I'll sort of pick it up once I've said my next bit, and we'll keep coming back to what you guys have got to contribute. And the reason I'm doing this, and the reason I did the precision chat last week, is because in a couple of the new series of videos that I'm going to be putting up, I'm going to be looking at specific models and their legacy in terms of what they've brought to the world of bass playing, and how they continue to have a really big influence on what people are buying, and how new instruments still generally conform to what Leo Fender and others of his ilk in the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s came up with in terms of bass design, and how things have moved on in that time. So Music Man Stingrays, where do we start? Well, they came out, the first year of release officially was 1976, and it was the third, I guess, it wasn't necessarily the third bass design, because Leo Fender, after the Precision Jazz, there were several other Fender models, but they didn't necessarily gain much popularity, so generally we don't know much about them. But once he left Fender and gone to the Music Man company, the Stingray was kind of what he put all his energy into, and for a number of years he wasn't allowed to do anything because of a legal situation with Fender, where they said basically, we don't want you creating instruments that are going to compete against what we have, which he created. So he wasn't able to do anything, but what he was doing was in the background developing these new instruments for Music Man. And from what I can gather, when the Stingray came out, it was a hit, but it was kind of a muted hit, because it took time for sort of notable players to sort of grab onto it and sort of start to make use of it, because obviously it's one of the first active basses out there. There had been, I guess, Alembic were probably the first, and then other companies started to see what the benefits of active circuitry were in terms of the tones you could get and how the player could manipulate what the bass had to offer. But until it kind of really started to sort of gain some traction, so I'd imagine sort of around 78, 79, 80, and obviously a lot of disco bands and bass players in disco bands were starting to realize the sort of added benefit of that active circuit, and the amount of warmth you could get, because it only had active bass and active treble. There wasn't MIDI EQ at that point. It just allowed you to fatten up the bass signal, but also you had those razor sharp highs. So for the slapping brigade, people like Louis Johnson, it was a godsend, because where a lot of bass players had worked with Precisions and Jazzes, maybe Rickenbackers, Gibson, unless they had the money for an Alembic, there wasn't a cheaper option when it came to active circuitry. But so many players had bought into the Fender design and that look and that vibe and what the Fender instruments had to offer, it was very noticeable that a lot of players who had been in that Fender stable started to go, oh, what's this Stingray? You know, what's this all about? And then the progression from that was obviously the Stingray had one pickup and it's done very well on that design for decades. Then came the Sabre, so here's two pickups and switching options. And with the Sabre, you had like an extra treble boost and parallel and series options. And then over time, after Music Man had been bought out by Ernie Ball, you started to get things like the 5-string version with parallel and series switching. You had the Sterling, which was a slight redesign, a less bulky body, a less bulky neck, kind of a bit more jazz-like, but with a fairly pronounced sort of curve to the neck profile. But that took the switching that had already been started in the 5-string and was put into that Sterling. And then for years, not a lot happened with the Music Man bass design, especially with the Stingray. And then all of a sudden in early 2000s, I think, mid 2000, yeah, probably early 2000s, it started to be possible you could add on an extra single coil pickup. So you could have the humbucker and a single coil, and then started to come the options, or you can add an extra humbucker, because by this point the Sabres had been discontinued. And then all of a sudden, around that time, so early 2000s, suddenly Music Man basses just boomed in terms of options. So you had things like, I can see the bass in my head, the BMW designed, it's gone, someone help me, you know what I mean, from the early 2000s. As soon as I see it, Bongo, thank you. It suddenly popped into my head. The Bongo came out, which was another sort of a complete redesign of that instrument, made from different timbers than they would usually use, with a basswood body. Thank you, Richard Evans, Bongo. I got in there first, sir. And then all of the pickup options were there for you to have if you were designing a bass through Music Man. And then we had various anniversary releases, and it's just like suddenly all of the options that for years players wanted, not just with the Stingray but with any Music Man, were suddenly there. And now there are so many options. I sometimes wonder, it's like, have they saturated the market with the possibilities? But it does allow them to release new takes on the instrument fairly regularly, update the color catalog almost yearly, I think. And so the Stingray we have now, in essence, is in some ways very similar from the bass that came out in '76, but in some ways markedly different, because in 2018 they released the new version of the Stingray called the Stingray Special, which basically overhauled the instrument as it had been. So suddenly the necks were made of roasted maple, which changed the tone slightly. Generally seems to have been a positive reaction to that. Lots of manufacturers now offering roasted maple as an option. Basically dries out the wood and changes the resonance of it a little, maybe. They changed the pickups to neodymium pickups. That went had a redesign. The circuit had a redesign. The hardware was suddenly reduced in weight, and they've basically gone down the same route as Hipshot, you know, ultralight everything. So ultralight bridge, ultralight machine heads. The compensated nut was changed, I think. If it wasn't changed, then it was obviously moved over onto this design. I'm trying to remember everything that changed in that release. But the compensated nut had come in the 2000s. I'm trying to think what else. I think that's probably it. But anyway, it got a major overhaul with the Stingray Special. And now we're in a position, it's like, I couldn't tell you what the next progression of that instrument is going to be. So going back you know, looking at all the players that have used them, I mean, the big players. Okay, you're looking at Lewis Johnson, Tony Levin, Flea, obviously, and I think it would be fair to say Flea's use of Stingray bass basically catapulted the Music Man Stingray into the 90s and beyond. It wasn't that it was a tired bass design, but they certainly weren't flavour of the month up until Blood, Sugar, Sex, Magic came out. And then all of a sudden, in the early 90s, every bass player had to have a Music Man Stingray. And I can remember going in the bass centre in Wapping here in London, and they, you know, I guess before that, up until what, 91, 92, Stingrays, you'd see them in shops, but they weren't ever highly desirable. You wouldn't find the kids all sort of, oh, well, I need to have a Music Man Stingray. But I can remember, having been a bass player for 4 or 5 years at that point, you go into somewhere like the Bass Centre or any of the guitar shops in London, and they would be full of kids banging out flea licks on a Music Man Stingray constantly. And if it was a Saturday, they'd probably be doing it all day, which was kind of scary. And suddenly everyone wanted to have a Stingray. And even if they used other basses, they would have a Stingray in their arsenal. And you started to find players who maybe weren't so well, certainly weren't well known for using a Stingray, would use it on certain things. So you had players like John Taylor, who inherited Bernard Edwards's Stingray. Suddenly he was using one. John Deacon used one, obviously, with Queen, but he wasn't predominantly a Stingray player. He favoured his precisions, but he always had that Stingray on stage from 76 onwards, and obviously was used for Another One Bites the Dust and various other tunes on Queen albums. Mark King, Level 42, had 2 Stingrays, a 4 and a 5, which he ordered in 1990 for the recording of Guaranteed, and used those basses on Guaranteed, Forever Now, and the Trash album. I used to own the 4-string when Mark sold a load of equipment off. And it was a great bass. I think it was made in 1989 when I checked the serial number. So bass players that, you know, there have been so many great bass players who've used Stingrays. And I think for a lot of players, they are different enough from Fender Precision or Fender Jazz, but not so different that if you were to go into a rehearsal room with a Stingray, it doesn't look out of place. So if the band were used to hearing or seeing a Precision or a Jazz, if you had a Stingray, you're not too far away from that stable of bass design, and it's a safe bet. I remember not long after I bought the Mark King Stingray, someone said, "Oh, did you use that in a audition?" And someone else remarked, no one ever lost an audition because they walked in with a Stingray, but there's plenty of people who've lost auditions because they didn't have something like a Stingray or a Fender. And you got to remember, at that time, which would have been mid-90s, lots of players had 6-string basses and what have you. There wasn't a 6-string bass version of a Stingray or a Music Man bass. And I've sat in audition rooms with other bass players who had their 6-string, it's not a monstrosity, but they're big instruments, and you just realize that the songs you were hearing in the room that was the audition was being held in, that wasn't what that band needed. But if you had a Stingray, that would probably get you through that audition, and you wouldn't lose it on that basis. Big albums that have got Stingrays all over them. Well, Peter Gabriel, So, any of the live albums that Tony Levin's on. Lewis Johnson with the Brothers Johnson and Off the Wall with Michael Jackson. John Deacon, The Game. That Stingray not only is on Another One Bites the Dust, I'm sure it's on a few other tracks on there as well. I'm trying to think, there's so many. The whole Chic catalogue. I think apart from the first album, I think that's all Precision and Jazz. but I think from that point on, it's generally Stingray based. So anything with Bernard Edwards on through the late 70s and early 80s, you're going to hear a Stingray in there. And the final album that Bernard is on, which is the live Chic album from Japan, which was recorded on the night that he died, that is all Stingray. You'll probably find the video on YouTube somewhere. In fact, I might even put a link to it in the description box underneath for those watching this video at a later date. And if you needed any more example of how a Stingray should sound, that video is what you need to be watching and listening to. So, I mean, any of the albums that Bernard was playing on at that time. So, for example, Diana Ross's album, Diana, that's all Stingray. And then we get on to Flea, and I mean, you're looking at a hell of a back catalogue, but I think a lot of the album Blood Sugar Sex Magic wasn't necessarily recorded with a Stingray. I know he used a wow, and I know he used an alembic on some songs, but a lot of the back in those days we didn't really have the internet, so what you were seeing were, until you saw photos in magazines and papers and anything on TV, generally he had a Stingray with him. So suddenly everyone assumed that's the sound of a Stingray. And who's to argue? You know, a lot of the gigs that the Red Hot Chili Peppers were doing at that time, he was using Stingrays, and certainly can't argue with the performances and the tone he was getting. I've just seen that Stacey from North Carolina has offered up a super chat payment to the channel. Thank you very much. That is very much appreciated. As I've said, all the money from super chats and the memberships, which will be coming in February, which I talked about last week, all payments to the channel will go towards new equipment, studio hire for videos, promotion of the channel. It all gets fed back in. It's not necessarily going straight into my pocket. It will go into making this channel carry on for as long as possible. Hopefully we're going to be around for many years. I certainly intend to keep this channel going as long as I can. So if you're enjoying what you're seeing, enjoying the live chat, enjoying the review videos, the demo videos, the interviews, all the content on the channel, if you wish to contribute, please feel free. You can do it via the super chat button, which is on the live chat box on the right of your screen. You'll see a $sign. You can click on that and make a contribution. It's very much appreciated. And I have had some questions about people asking me about merchandise regarding the channel. There will be merchandise. I can't offer it through the YouTube platform until I have 10,000 subscribers. And at the moment I have 1,993. We're approaching the big 2,000. So I can't offer merchandise through this channel until we get over the 10,000. However, I am planning on doing some merchandise through outside sources and websites. There's various options, and I'm looking at it at the moment. So that will be coming along shortly. So hopefully very soon you will be able to have things like Brooks's Bass Corner t-shirts, hopefully some mugs, possibly mouse mats, and a few other options. And I'm looking into it all at the moment. So you will be alerted via the channel and the social media platforms as well. When that's all ready to go, I will let you know. And while we're talking merchandise, very happy this evening to be wearing my new Rotosound t-shirt. Big hello to the guys at Rotosound Strings, Jason, Jack, and all the team. Hope you're all well. Hope you're the New Year's seeing you in rude health and good business. So hopefully catch up with you guys very shortly. So there we go. Yeah, so the Music Man Stingray. So what's a good reason for buying one? Well, I think the look and the design aesthetic, because it goes along with what was coming out of Fender and what Leo Fender had designed for Fender, it was kind of the natural progression. And even now, as we head towards sort of 50 years, like 45, 46 years of them being out there, people still have a problem with the scratch plate. They still have a problem with it just being a one pickup bass, although it doesn't have to be if you're speccing it with extra pickups. Some people can't get over the 3/1 machine head arrangement. But reasons for buying one, the tone and the playability and the balance. And there's so many positives with the Stingray that well, to my mind, they far outweigh the negatives. However, I will always go back to this point, and people who watch the channel will know I've said it many times on different videos. You can only take a bass on its merits as you see it. You could have 10 versions or 10 examples of a Music Man Stingray bass in front of you. Whether they all come out the same batch or they're over 20, 30 years, they are all going to sound different. You can't get away from it because no two basses are built from the same piece of wood. You can put the same circuit that's come off the same production line as another one and the same pickup in. It is not going to be the same. You get an approximation. There's a Stingray tone, and any bass that has a fundamental design using the same design aspects and the same quality control is going to have a fairly signature sound, but they're not all going to play the same. They're not going to feel the same. They're not going to balance the same. And tonally, they won't be the same. So, what is it about the Stingray tone? I put my teeth in. I'm having one of those days today. So what is it about the Stingray tone that makes it so appealing? I think the active circuit is a huge thing of importance for most players, because if you've always played a passive bass and this is kind of your first step into active basses, you're going to notice what a huge output that pickup and circuit gives you. Before I bought my first Stingray, I had a Kubicki Factor, which I've still got here. A Fender custom shop Kubicki. And with that bass, I used to have to turn my amp gain right up. The tone was great, but it just didn't have what I call just raw gut power. And it was almost like it was being too polite. When I bought that Stingray and took it on the same gig, I had to totally turn the gain down. It was, I mean, just without even adding much EQ, that pickup was so hot, and it would make the amp clip to a level I was like, I don't understand. Why is it so loud? Just the nature of those basses, they were exceptionally loud and still are. So if this is your first sort of venture from passive basses to active, you're going to find this thing is really like a battering ram. And you've got to be really careful with how you use the volume control and the active EQ. It's very easy to go think, oh, I'll just turn it all up. I'll turn the volume up. I'll turn all the EQ up. It's not a great idea. I did it once and it wasn't a pretty sound. It was too raucous. It was too in your face. And that's what Stingrays are, very much in your face. They don't have to be. But the bass EQ is so powerful, and I've seen people rip cabinet speakers apart by playing really aggressively, all the EQ up, and the treble EQ will shatter glass. I mean, it's well known that the treble EQ on a Stingray would make a glass shatter. It's really not necessarily brittle, but it's a hard treble response. But then again, if you compared a 76 Stingray with a 1999 Stingray, there's going to be some differences, because over time that circuitry has been changed and the components on the circuit has been changed and how the pickup is wound has been changed. So you've got that side of things. You've then got the whole, whether you've got a rosewood fingerboard or a maple fingerboard, whether you've got a bird's eye neck or a standard neck. They stopped doing the gloss finish on the neck. Now when was that? That would have been, I think it was around 95, 96, 97, I think. So it used to be they had gloss necks, and then they went to an oiled neck. And actually, I've got my Stingray here, so I can show you this. So here's my beast. So the back of the neck, hopefully you can see, it's almost like there's a tide mark here, as though something's changed. And that runs all the way down the neck. So this all used to be glossed. Now the back of this neck and the front of this neck is glossed. But what they did was they made this whole section from here onwards, that's been oiled. So it's a much drier finish. Now, lots of people complain that they found gloss necks sticky and what have you. I think this was actually, I mean, I've never spoken to anyone officially at Music Man as to why they've made that an oiled neck. But I suspect it might have been a cost-cutting exercise or not. Because at that time, right, well, I think even before the mid-2000s, probably going back a little further, there were a lot of cost and ecological problems with regarding gloss necks and gloss spraying. And there were starting to be cutbacks by the government in America for things like gloss spraying and what have you. And that might have been one of the reasons. I can work with either. I prefer the gloss neck. And actually, I find these oiled necks can get a bit sticky, but I can live with it. But yeah, so there we go. So yeah, this is my Stingray. You'll find a review of this on the channel. There's a review video. I'll put a link to it in the box below so you can refer to it later. Done a few mods, changed the scratch plate. Originally came with, oh god, I think it was a plain black scratch plate. It's teal finish. Scratch plate is now abalone, so it looks like a shell. Pickup's been changed for an Aguilar, which is great. Gave it a bit more punch, a bit more power. Don't quite have so many of the low G-string volume problems that some Stingrays do have. There's big arguments online on various chat forums about G-string volume on a Stingray. Loads of people argue about it and they go, well, mine doesn't sound like it. Again, no two basses are the same. So, you know, if your circuit and your pickup have different components or the pickup's wound slightly differently, then you probably haven't got a problem. Some people do have problems with that. The circuit has also been changed out for a John East Music Man 4-knob circuit. And on this, it also has a push-pull on the volume, which allows, so tonally, this circuit has been designed to model the first Stingrays, the first sort of generation of Stingrays, and how the bass and treble worked on those basses. There's a mid-EQ, which is sweepable, but this push-pull gives you a treble response akin to what the Sabre basses have. So not only have I got treble, or is it that one? Can't remember, I think it's that one. So I've got treble, sweepable mids, bass. I've then got an extra treble boost, which makes it glassier, should it need it. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. But it's great, very flexible. From John East, again, I'll put a link below. So if you want to get hold of one of these, I will give you the link and you can get through to John. And that's been very problem-free, all of it. And the bass plays great, sounds great. And yeah, as far as I'm concerned, if you're a working bass player, you need a Precision, you need a Jazz, you need a Stingray in your collection. After that, it's entirely up to you. But at some point, these sounds will be required. Okay, you can have a Music Man kind of format and a different make of bass and what have you. By all means, go down that road if you like. But yeah, so there we go. I have another Music Man here, which is my Stingray 5. So again, there's a video for this on the channel. I'll put a link here, below here in the description box. So this one's slightly different. So when I bought this, I think this was a 1998 model, and I think it's got a ceramic pickup, I think. And so this has the switching. So you've got 3 position switch. Can't remember, it's between the 2 coils in here, and then there's parallel and series in there. You've got a 3-band EQ. But the thing about this bass is it's got a status graphite neck. Now, when I bought it, it had this neck, but the guy who had part exchanged it also put the maple neck in with it as well. So I had both, and I wanted it because it had the graphite neck. And the tonal difference between that and the maple was quite marked. It really was. But the graphite neck is far more stable. And I love the sound of graphite necks. And in terms of traveling with it, I mean, I took this to Australia with when I was doing some Bonnie Tyler shows, and that neck is rock solid, didn't move at all, and hasn't really been changed since I bought it. It stayed fairly well set up, hasn't moved, and that's really what you're after. So if you want to hear how this bass sounds, check the review video out, but also you can check out some of the videos that I did with Bonnie Tyler. 2 of the shows in Melbourne were filmed. Well, I say filmed. Basically, they were conveying video shots onto 2 screens either side of the stage. Thankfully, I got a DVD of those 2 shows. So if you are looking on the channel, if you go to the playlists, and I think there's a playlist called Live Appearances, and you'll find 4 or 5 videos of me playing this bass on there from Melbourne in 2006. So nothing has changed on this bass since, other than a restring, but everything else is as it was, and very reliable it was too. So if you've got any questions about either of those basses, feel free to fire away. I know I get the occasional email and message on the social media asking about the neck, because lots of players want to go down that route. But I've had no problems with it. It's been fabulous, and I actually sold the neck on to a friend of mine called Dave Williamson. If you're out there, Dave, good evening. He's a big Stingray fan, and he bought that neck off me many moons ago. I think that was oh goodness, that would have been around 2003, I think. So that bass has had the status neck on for a long time. So I'm just going to quickly have a look at the comments and the questions, see what we've got here. Richard Evans, short scale version now too. Yes, there are. So on the channel at the moment, there's a Soundbite demo of a Sterling by Music Man short scale Stingray. So if you want to check that out, again, I'll put a link in. You can check that demo out. I haven't had one of the proper Ernie Ball Music Man Stingray short scales yet, or I haven't been able to get my hands on one. I know there's been a hold up on their basses coming into the country, but I hope to have one of those up soon with a bit of luck. Stacey, gloss necks are easier to keep clean. Yes, they are. Easy to clean, easy to maintain, I think. But apparently these necks are easy to clean. I've just, people talk about various sort of oils and potions and stuff, but I've done fairly well with the general guitar cleaning fluids, I have to say. So things from Dunlop and Music Nomad. Love all the stuff that both of those companies come out with. That stuff tends to keep that maple neck relatively clean and grind free, so certainly can't complain. Any questions, any suggestions, any comments? Any of you guys out there own a Stingray? Any of you want to own a Stingray? And might have some questions that you want answering before you go down that route. If I can help, if I can offer any advice or anything from my experience of owning a couple, I'd be more than happy to impart and help you along your way. So yeah, So as I said, 3 reviews, or 3 reviews, 3 Soundbite demos went up last week and this week, and then the next 3 videos coming up tomorrow. Dingwall D-Rock Hellboy Soundbite number 2, a Fender FSR 70s Vibe Precision, which is here in the rack. So this is going up. Oh, yeah. So this will be appearing in a Soundbite video next week. So it's got the black binding, white dots on the side, black dots on the front, ash body, and this thing sounds mighty. And I've used it on quite a few gigs since it came into my possession last year. So that will be going up probably on Monday. And then next Thursday will be a Court B5 Element. And that is also in the rack, having just been reviewed. It will feature in one of the forthcoming issues of Bass Player magazine. So you'll be able to look at my Soundbite demo. Hopefully my review video will be up as well, and there will be the review in the magazine. So there's plenty of that to enjoy. And then coming up over the next sort of 6 weeks, we've got some pedal reviews, some interviews. Hopefully the Billy Sheehan 30th anniversary of Lean Into It video will go up. I'm debating at the moment whether that should be split over. In fact, while we're on the live chat, I'm going to use the poll facility. So for you fine people who are watching this video and involved in it at the moment, just keep an eye on the live chat. I'm going to put a poll up. Okay, Billy Sheehan interview on 30 years Lean Into It. This is weird trying to put commentary on something while I'm typing, but there we go. Would you prefer a single... Okay. My question is too long. I need to make it shorter. Okay, Billy Sheehan interview. Minutes or times. That will be 30. Okay. There's a poll there. If you find people watching and getting involved, feel free. Feel free to get involved. I'm hoping you see it. There we go. So there's a poll there on that live chat window to... so I've got to make sure I point that way. Yeah. There. There's a poll. The Billy Sheehan interview, 30 years of Lean Into It, is 75 minutes long. Now, would you prefer a single 75-minute video, bearing in mind how long it takes to watch a 75-minute video, or would you prefer 2 installments, so 2 37-minute length videos? It could even end up being 3 or 4, but I need to get an idea. What would you watch? Personally, I will watch an interview that I want to watch. I'll watch the whole thing through top to bottom, but I know how little time people have. So if you would find it easier to watch it in chunks, then vote no. If you want it as one long file, hit yes. And at the moment, it's looking like people want it broken down. They want it broken into segments. It's hard. You know, I've put quite a few, I think I put about 20 interviews up right here on the channel. And certain people who I've interviewed, people will come on and watch those videos and watch them the whole way through. And then other people, maybe whose fan base aren't quite as involved, or you know, haven't bought into what those people do, will literally watch 2 minutes and go. So it's very hard to know, because if I make one long file and you only watch a couple of minutes, my view duration percentage is pathetic, to put it plainly. The longer you watch, the better my view duration percentage is, and that helps me, helps the channel, helps the video. But if it means breaking it down into smaller sections for you guys out there, then I'll do that. Just means I've got to put another intro and another ending on, which is no big deal. Let's see if I can see that, because at the moment I can only see, I think one person's voted, but there we go. Let's see. Yeah. So when that comes, I mean, it's a great interview. It really is. I mean, I learned things on that interview. I thought I knew everything about that album, and or thought I knew a lot about that album. And Billy was coming out with little details, little nuggets, little gems of information that it was like, cripes, I had no idea. And it's great. It's good fun. And it's a video interview as opposed to the audio ones that are already here on the channel. So if you guys would prefer it broken down into small chunks, we can do that. I don't know if I want to make it smaller than about 35 minutes for each one, because then it'll just be dragging on and on and on. But if you guys want that to be how it is, you know, if you want an interview to be 10-minute chunks, then I can do that. It'll just be lots and lots of videos. And I know sometimes when I watch stuff on YouTube, if there's like multiple parts, it's a pain in the backside trying to find all those parts all together. And over time, YouTube stops suggesting certain parts. So it might be 13 parts of a video, and you get numbers 1, 2, 3, 7, 8, 11, 13. It's like, well, where's all the others gone? But if smaller chunks are better for you guys, then I can go with that. It's no big deal. And then there are some other interviews which I can put out. Just trying to think how I can fit it all in with the new series that are going to be coming out as well. So there's a lot going on. I feel like I'm spinning about 20 plates at the moment, trying to film it all, write it all, edit, promote, upload, and everything else. So it's quite a lot for just me on my own to do, but we'll get there. Here we go. Stacey, I would love to own a Stingray. What's the best way to ease into that market without blowing the bank? Okay, I would seriously, if it's a case of wanting to know if the sounds are what you want and the feel of it, I would not be scared of looking at the Stingray subs, which are the cheapest end of it. So about 20 years ago, there was a company called OLP. I think they were Japanese or Korean. OLP standing for officially licensed product, and they were given permission by Music Man to develop a cheap version of a Stingray. So it had kind of sharp edges, you didn't have rounded fingerboard edges, and some of the finishing wasn't great. They sounded really good, and they were cheap. They were about 200 to 250 pounds here in the UK, and you still see them come up on eBay and various bass forums. And they were great. And then they stopped. I think their license ran out. They didn't want to renew. And at that point, probably Ernie Ball and Music Man decided they were going to do all of this themselves. Rather than license it out to separate companies, they would do it themselves. So then started coming up the cheaper ranges, and Sterling by Music Man range came out. And these Music Man subs came out. So the subs are quite cheap. So in the UK, probably between £300 and £450, depending on the finish. Prices might have changed. I actually reviewed a couple for Bass Guitar Magazine a couple of years ago, and I was blown away by how good they were for the money. You don't get the frills that you get on like the proper American product, but they're really good and surprisingly good. I think they might have been passive, but I could be wrong. I'd need to go back and look at my review stuff. So the next step up then is you're looking at the Sterling by Music Man. So they've gone up in price because basically Music Man product has become more expensive over the past sort of 4 or 5 years. They keep having these incremental increases. So where you could have got a Sterling by Music Man bass probably for £500, £600, £700 a couple of years ago, you're now looking at close to £1,000. But again, if it's a case of you're not sure if it's the design or the sound that you want, buy second hand. Don't buy new. But buy second hand, you're going to get far better value for money. And if you find you don't like it, you're not going to lose much money when it comes to resale. Whereas if you buy brand new, you're going to take that hit as soon as you walk out the door with it. So if you want to see if a Stingray is for you, just buy a second hand one. I mean, most of these things are fairly bulletproof. And I remember once a PA Soundman saying to me when I still owned my one, so this would have been 2001, he said to me he thought, having done PAs for like 30 years, he thought the Music Man Stingray was the best mass-produced bass on the planet, pound for pound. And at the time, I couldn't really disagree with him. But I think now they've become so expensive, I don't think that's necessarily the case. I think there's probably better value for money. But there's still great basses. So, yeah, if you want to ease into that market and check out Stingray, go secondhand, because you won't lose out. I mean, just the bass design and the tones will guarantee that people are always after them. So, whereas if you go brand new on any of them, I mean, if you were going to the Music Man sub, they are so cheap that you probably just buy one brand new. But once you get into the Sterling by Music Man, if you don't want to take £1,000 hit or $1,000 hit, buy second hand. I did. I think all of my Stingray, all the Stingrays I've had have been second hand, so nothing lost there. Richard Evans, how much difference is there between a full-on USA built Stingray to the cheaper Sterling range? Right, okay, so this I have been through before. So this is a proper American one, 1999 this was made. So what you will lose is things like, now bear in mind I haven't looked at a Sterling by Music Man other than the short scale Stingray for a while, and I did a feature which, if you go onto the Facebook channel today leading up to this, I put we did a big feature in Bass Guitar magazine about the ultimate Stingray guide a couple of years ago. I went down to Strings and Things in Shoreham on the south coast, which they are the UK distributor for all Music Man products, and I sat in that room with loads and loads of Stingrays. Now it could well be that some of the features may have changed since then, but as I recall, you didn't get rounded fingerboard edges, so it felt a little sharper. And we're not talking about the frets, we're talking about the timber. Sorry, I need to hold that up. I've got the camera there and I've got the screen there. Right. So fingerboard edges don't tend to be rounded on the Sterlings, but again, that could have changed. As I recall, I think some of the body contouring was slightly less pronounced, and like on this version, it's very rounded. I can't remember if that was or wasn't a feature. I remember thinking the hardware was pretty much the same. I don't think there was too much different. And circuitry and pickup wise, I think was very same. I think a lot of the difference is to do with the woodworking and the finishing. But again, look at the price difference. Now the American models are so expensive. I think you're looking at £2,000 plus. And I know they're trying to keep up with Fender pricing and what have you, but if you want to get value for money with this, get a second-hand one. I wouldn't buy a brand new one. And again, resale value is pretty much, it holds on to its value. So I would go with that. But a USA built Stingray, if you can get one second-hand at a reasonable price, go for it. And for some reason, I remember this about 10 years ago, Stingrays were really cheap. Like the bottom had fallen out of the market. They were really cheap. You could buy basses like this for around £500, £600, £650, £700. And now you're looking at over £1,000. You might sometimes see a cheaper one. But the Sterling range are very, very good for what they are. And I have actually found, looking on sort of various websites over the past sort of year or so, some of the Sterling finishes are much more desirable, look better choice of colours, better choice of finish. There was I think there was a Koa Special, I think it was called, and it had like an extra £50 to £100 on top of the price, which was a Sterling model, and it was outstanding. And I played it when we did that magazine feature, and I was very close to buying it, I have to say. Really close, because it was just great, sounded great, played great, looked great. And I just thought, I hadn't seen an American Stingray with that finish in that timber and sound as good as this did. But unfortunately, I had other things to pay for. So it didn't happen. But generally, I think, yeah, the main difference between the US ones and the sterling range is just general finishing and woodworking. But again, you know, if you want rounded edges, there's nothing to stop you taking a piece of very fine grit sandpaper and just running it along the edge. Eventually, you'll get round edges. I mean, as you probably see on this one, the underside of the board does tend to get a bit dirty. And it's hard to clean these. You can clean rubbish off them, but once they start going dark with dirt, it's very hard to maintain that. But there we go. There we go. Okay, I can see some more questions. Stacey, 2 installments. 2 installments what? As in you want to pay in 2 installments, or what's the best way to ease into that market without blowing the bank? Oh, I see. Right. So you probably wouldn't want to buy second hand and pay in one hit. You want to do it in 2 installments. Well, in that case, I think you've got to look for online retailers who maybe have got second hand or are used or B stock, maybe, and buy that way. Or the other option would be to do it on a credit card, 0%. And if you do that properly and cleverly and supervise your spending, buying on 0% is the way to go, because you're not going to pay a penny more than the price, and you can actually spread those payments out over time. You just got to manage your finances, and I've done that on a few occasions with base purchases. Okay, let's see how long we've been going. 1 hour and 10 minutes. I'll do another 5 minutes if no one's got any questions or comments or suggestions. I'll wrap this up in 5 minutes time. Thank you to everyone who's attended this evening. Very much appreciated. You lost your internet connection, it booted you off. It happens to us all, you know, happens to us all. So because you lost your connection, I'll just reiterate what I just said to you. So you said 2 installments, and I was going into them finance options for buying a base, because I thought you meant 2 installments to buy a Stingray. So I then said, in that case, you need to find an online retailer who might be carrying B stock or used instruments or demo models that would allow you to do it over 2 payments. But the other option would be to do it on a 0% credit card, and then you can spread those payments over a year or 2 years, and you're not going to pay any interest. It's going to be at 0%. So that would be the other option. And I've bought many an instrument and many pieces of equipment on 0% credit card in my time. You just got to manage the finances and make sure you pay it off and make sure you make the monthly payments. So, yeah. So, so we're going to do about another 5 minutes, going to wrap this up. And if there are no other questions or comments. It's not nuclear. Actually, this is called, this is by Innocent, who do the smoothies and milkshakes and stuff. So this is a thing called Bolt from the Blue. And it's got various sort of guava and fruit and all sorts. And it's I've got fizzy water. It does look like the stuff in Star Wars. I know. I saw that on the telly and thought that's exactly what it looks like. But no, it's very good. A fruit-based drink with sparkling water in it. Cheers. It's great. Yes, so back. You keep venting me off onto side discussions here. Thank you very much to everyone who's attended the live chat this evening. Thank you if you're watching this at a later date. And if you're just keeping sort of in touch with what the channel's doing, thank you. If you've got any comments, leave them below. If you've got anything you would like to comment on, we're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. You can leave messages here on the community tab, here on the channel. I post on it almost every day. Sometimes there might be a few days between posts, but I can reply to comments and suggestions on there. New Soundbite demo video going up tomorrow, which is the Dingwall Hellboy Soundbite number 2. There will be another soundbite on Monday next week, which will be the Fender FSR 70s based precision. And there will be another soundbite next Thursday, which is the Court B5 element bass. And hopefully, if you guys are finding this interesting, this is the second week that we've done live chats regularly on a Wednesday at 7 o'clock. If you're enjoying this and this format and what we're talking about, we'll do another one next week. And I don't know what will happen, what we'll discuss. It's as much up to you guys contributing as it is to me setting an agenda on what we're going to talk about. So unless someone says, could we talk about such and such, I'll just keep bringing topics to the floor and we can discuss them that way. So on that note, I hope you all have a wonderful evening or a wonderful afternoon or a wonderful morning, wherever you are. Take care, look after yourself, and hopefully see you soon here on Brooks's Bass Corner. All the best. Have a great day.